Brett, this is the point at which you and I stop using all the profanity, is what Becca's trying to say.
I'm generally, I'm pretty good with consumer groups. Depends on the day.
All right, we're live on YouTube here in just a moment.
Right.
We got a crowd, you guys. Look at that.
You got the functionality of this thing down, Beck. I'm impressed.
I'm telling you, all it took was 10 minutes with it, some curse words and a prayer, and I got it down. Okay.
Excellent. Well done.
All
Love
right.
it. Seeing everybody pop in here. We got some Roots of Ruin gin coming in there from Perry Bentley. Perfect. Love it. Love it. Let's get some thumbs up from Nancy over there.
Hey guys, welcome to a virtual Garden Gala. It is a cocktail class with Castle and Key presented by Republic Bank. We are so excited that you can join us tonight. It's a unique night. We're still battling with the safety of not getting sick from the pandemic and also just wanting to be smart about your all's time. And so we did a virtual event, but typically the Garden Gala is an in-person event that happens around this time of the year. We partner with renowned local chefs to make unique and locally sourced cuisines, courses, and have a great night. Castle and Key and Jack Rudy Cocktail Company are typically our cocktail partners of the night. And if you were at our Garden Gala in 2019 and you enjoyed those drinks, just get ready for tonight. We have lead blender and brand ambassador Brett Connors with us from Castle and Key. He is going to walk us through making the best gin and tonic you will ever have. John Newton from Castle and Key has already had a couple of tonight, so we're going to have a really great night. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about one of the prettiest distilleries in the state. We're going to talk about this Roots of Run gin, what's going on with Castle Key, and of course, Glean Kentucky. So, Brett, I'm going to go on and move it over to you and mute myself, and let's get drinking.
Yeah, so I guess it's a perfect time to dive into the first cocktail. So I'm kind of thinking like cocktail history, more cocktails. I don't know if you guys are vibing on that, but I think it's the right flow. So I'm glad everyone's just showing their bottles of gin in the picture. That's exactly what we're hoping to see here. But yeah, no, first of all, thank you to Glean for having us on today. You know, we're big proponents of what you all are doing in the community and across all your perspectives. So anytime we have the opportunity to share a little bit of gin with our Glean family, we're always really proud to do so. But that first cocktail, when I don't know if it's the best gin and tonic, but I think it's a pretty darn good one. So working with Jack Rudy's always a distinct advantage. So whenever I'm making a gin and tonic, it's really about the quality of your gin and then the quality of your tonic. So gin and tonics really came about as more of a solution than an answer for a lot of people, where historically the Brits were really smart. They were running into issues with malaria while traveling the world and a lot of their sailing vessels and transportation ships. And they were running into malaria. It's quite unfortunate. They realized there's an ingredient called quinine that helps prevent malaria in large doses. The only problem is quinine tastes pretty horrible on its own. It's extremely aseptic, kind of bitter, a little bit sharp. So the Brits are pretty smart. They go, well, if we mix it with other herbal components, it can become more potable. Well, then they invented tonic. It naturally fights malaria, so it's good for you. I'm not a doctor. If there are any doctors on here, please don't criticize me. I don't have that education. But I think the benefit that we found with that tonic is that it was still really hard to convince sailors and tradesmen to drink it. So they decided, well, if you put enough gin in darn near about anything, it becomes slightly more enjoyable, which is science. So the more gin that you mix with your tonic, you're really following your doctor's orders. I've never personally had malaria. I've even been to like South Africa, so I count that as a huge gin and tonic win. But let's dive on in. So when we're making this cocktail, I like a highball glass. It's just kind of my preference on something tall and skinny. I feel like it has like a good gin vibe to it. If you go to like Spain and kind of like that region of Europe, the big thing that's super cool right now is oversized wine glasses. That way you can kind of make it look like a fishbowl, shoving lots of other secondary ingredients in there for your garnish. But I like to start with a highball glass. Here, let me grab some ice. Sorry, guys.
Hey, Brett, can I make a comment? This gin smells very good. I mean, it smells like fruity, floral. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes this gin?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have a misperception on gin, where for so long, the majority of gins, especially in the London dry style, are very resin forward, pine forward. You know, people often say things like Christmas tree when they're thinking about a London dry style gin. And that's not a criticism. You know, if you want that's like kind of more foresty profile that's really juniper predominant, I always recommend brands like Beefeater and Tanqueray. They do a great job at that. But you know, having such a wonderful botanical bounty around us in Kentucky, the idea was to make it a little bit softer, a little bit more floral, bright, complex. So we're going to use things like juniper, angelica, coriander, but then that are pretty common in most gins. And then we start to diversify into a little bit of some more unique botanicals, things like ginger. It's going to give a sweet kind of candy ginger note to it. I love chamomile. It's very bright, soothing, lightly floral. A little bit of rosemary. That's going to be kind of that center, like wood floral pinning in the palate. And then one of my favorite ingredients that's in it is actually lemon verbena. So when we were first working on the distillery that we'll talk about shortly, we were trying to grow all of the botanicals on site. Well, Kentucky doesn't grow a lot of these things very well, so it would have been pretty tough and also kind of limiting on the flavors we were building. And we were working with renowned landscape, designer, fine gardener, John Karloftis. And we said, John, we're going to grow all these citrus trees on site. And he just laughed. He was just like, good luck. And we're like, really? No, we're going to grow grapefruit and lemon trees and orange trees. And then John just laughed again. He said, I'll plant anything for you, but it's not going to work. So that didn't work. It was horrible. They all basically didn't make it through the winter. We even brought them into the office to try to limp them through that first winter. The problem with that became that our distillery cat, Rick, I used to just say Rick was using the bathroom on them, but that makes it sound like our employees are a little bit more barbarian than sorts. But the reality was Rick decided one of them was his litter box, so that killed the grapefruit tree. And then he decided the lemon tree was also his litter box, which caused that to die as well. So instead, we looked at what started growing really well in Kentucky, things like lemon verbena, lemon geranium, lemon marjoram, lime basil, pineapple sage. There's all these amazing bright botanicals that exist really well here and love the climate. So instead of a citrus peel in this, we actually use lemon verbena. But the proof is a little robust, so I always warn you if you're not used to 106 proof gin. I think it's really nice in cocktails. On its own, it can be a little brash. So I don't mind a little bit of dilution or a lemon peel just to soften it some. But when I'm making this, I always start with ice in a gin and tonic just to give it a good base. If you want to be fancy, there's lots of really nice ice molds that you can buy now from like places like Williams-Sonoma to get nice, good-looking ice. We live in
I'm always for a great deal on Amazon.
Yeah, we live in a very old house, so we use the classic, mama and papa, mima papa kind of ice tray. It works great, and I think the ice in it's totally fine. You just got to make sure it stays pretty fresh. Perfect. So after that, the first thing I add in a lot of cocktails, I normally work from cheapest ingredient to most expensive ingredient. So often you're going to be using things like, your citrus juices. I always recommend putting in before any alcohol. But with this, I like to put in the tonic first, then the gin, and then I actually recarbonate with soda water. So if you have a bottle of Jack Rudy, the Jack Rudy is an awesome product because one, the guys who make it are really good people. Two, it tastes great. So the nice part about it smells great. The best part about Jack Rudy is it's a concentrate. So if you like a lot more tonic flavor, you can kind of play with your volume on it. For me, I like about 3/4 of an ounce. So if you have a measuring device, I recommend if you want to up your cocktail game at home, this is a Leopold jigger, but they also make a Japanese style. They make a bunch of other kind of styles of jiggers. I'm always really slow. I need my wife in the room if we're doing like baking measurement conversions because she's way better at it than me. I'm like, ounces to tablespoons is what? And she could answer that. Right? Yeah, so this is 3/4 of an ounce. Put that in there. And then I like a pretty stiff cocktail, so I'll do 2 ounces of gin.
You're with the right crowd.
Well, with my gin and tonics, I mean, depending on my mood, I could just do like 6 ounces of gin and then I tell it what tonic is from the other room. But those can be a little bit too robust. So I'll do 2 ounces of gin here. And then to finish that, I'm going to use 3 ounces of soda water. For
Okay,
soda
I
water,
have a question. I accidentally got tonic water.
ooh, I don't know if I'd put that on top of that tonic. I would use
no.
either Jack Rudy and soda water or just tonic water.
Okay.
Yeah, that tonic water is going to have additional chlorine, so it's going to kind of throw the drink a kilter if that's what we're doing.
Okay.
And soda water, go cheap. Like I always feel like I'm plugging Kroger for soda water, but you know, regular Kroger brand soda water is like 60 some cents. It's carbonated, it's fizzy, it's great. It does a great job. You know, I also like, there's a couple brands that make like smaller bottles. So if you just want a personal size cocktail, you know, there's less plastic waste and stuff.
So you recommend if we don't have the soda water, we can go without the soda water?
I would do just 3 ounces of that tonic water. So if you don't have soda water, I would do just tonic water. If you have the Jack Rudy's, I would do 3/4 an ounce of Jack Rudy's and then 3 ounces of soda water on top.
Okay.
But that's also one of those things where if you like it a little bit more carbonated or a little bit more diluted, you can always add additional soda water. And so that will balance it out. Can you remind us how much is in each side of the jigger? The small one is 3/4 an ounce. Maybe it depends on your jigger size. So a lot of them, I like 1 and 2 ounce jiggers. So I'll use like that looks like a 3/4 and a 1 1/4 or 1 1/2. It could say the interior.
I found you guys.
How's it going for everybody? Decent? It's Kroger Club Soda. Yeah, soda water is all the same thing. So all it is just CO2 diffused into water. So it gives it that fizzy, ziggy kind of flavor. The cool part too is soda water, for if you're ever on Jeopardy, please give me a shout out for this one. But soda water has carbonic acid in it. So if you ever drink soda water at room temperature and it tastes colder than it is, that's the way that carbonic acid is interacting with your palate. So it actually kind of like picks it up, makes it taste fizzier. When you're doing professional tastings too, I always like to drink carbonated water because I think it helps clean your palate more effectively than just like a standard water. So when I'm like what I call drinking for work, I always like either like a Pellegrino or soda water. And then I give it just a quick stir. If you have a nice bar spoon, you're welcome to use that. If you have a dinner spoon, it frankly works darn near about the same way. If I'm making drinks for myself, I'll use a finger too. If you're making drinks for others, they generally prefer you not to use your hand or finger to stir their drinks, unless you're really good friends. Now, the best part with gin and tonics is garnish, whatever you want. You know, with ours, I generally recommend either a lemon peel. You can use a lime wedge, a lemon. Tonight, the only citrus I have is a really pretty large clementine. So I'm going to do a really fat orange peel in there. One of my favorite party tricks is if you have friends over, you can actually batch this. And what we can do is you can actually freeze, like I'll cut a cantaloupe or a honeydew in half or any kind of other like pretty melon. You can pop them in the freezer and then you can use a melon baller and actually scoop like little bits of fruit as ice cubes in your gin and tonic pitcher if you're making
that's smart. That's really great.
Oh yeah, somebody just said fresh mint is great. Totally agree. In the wintertime, I often like rosemary and a couple juniper berries and like a lemon peel. You know, 'tis Derby season, so we just had a really successful Kentucky Derby, unless you lost money. So in Derby season, I always like a little bit of mint and club soda as well. But how did it turn out for everybody? We making them? We feel successful?
Okay, I'm gonna try mine.
Taste good?
I like that it's not like overpowering. It's the perfect summer like cocktail.
It's supposed to be refreshing. You know,
Yeah.
I kind of gravitate toward gin and tonics if you're sitting at the pool or if it's just a pretty day out. I'm also a big reader, so I love sitting on our screened-in porch, drinking a gin and tonic, reading, hopefully not having the cats bother me. And I'm surprised they haven't made an appearance already. Normally, one of the cats will show up about 5 minutes into the Zoom.
Mine got a warning, so we're okay on my side.
You better be good tonight. We're on Zoom. But yeah, I love gin and tonics for the summertime. I think they're just a really fun light cocktail. And they're nice in the winter too. In the winter, I generally will go with one of our fall gins. We also produce 2 seasonal gins with Castle and Key. We make one every fall. We make one every spring. We actually just released our spring 2021 gin. It's under the new label Rise, like RISE. This spring gin's really fun because it's elderberries that have this pretty nice candied blueberry tone to them, Earl Grey tea, so bergamot oil, orange peel, black tea that's really pretty, and then a little bit of lavender, some galangal root. So it's this really garden, well, it's perfect for this event, right? Everyone here likes gardening. It reminds me of my grandmother's garden. It's big, it's vibrant, it has a ton of like lush, really pretty aromatics to it. And then that final note, that really pretty candied blueberry gives a really nice sweetness to it. So if you're out and about in your local retail stores and you like garden-centric gin, Rise is definitely the king of the castle in that one. Where our falls tend to be a little bit darker tonal, earthier, richer. So
Right.
fall I really like in our winter GNTs if you're drinking GNTs all year. But perfect. Any questions on the cocktail? I like that everyone types out their questions. You have a very well-trained group.
Sometimes I muted them. This is the only way they can talk. And they know it. All positive and negative comments will come in writing.
Ooh, please no negative comments. I can't take any harsh criticism. Soda water, that's a great question. I like 3 ounces with that ratio. So I do 3/4 of an ounce of Jack Rudy and 3 ounces of soda water. For me, that's kind of my perfect sweet spot. Oh yeah, we can definitely share the recipes that are discussed. Where my mom loves soda water and tonic, and she's kind of a light drinker. So she'll do like an ounce of gin, like an ounce of tonic, and then like 4 or 5 ounces of soda water. She just prefers a heavier dilution. Where, from what we've heard about the group tonight, if anyone wants 4 ounces of gin and half an ounce of tonic and 2 ounces of soda water, that's okay too. That's why we like working from a concentrate, is because we don't judge.
Right.
Whatever makes you all happy.
Or if you want all gin and no tonic, good for you.
I still recommend the orange peel or lemon peel, just for some like expressed essential oils. It just warms it up, makes it a little bit more vibrant.
Right.
But great. Yeah.
So Brett, tell me, okay, so we have the gin, but that's not all that Castle and Key makes.
So gin was really one of the first things that we saw hit the market, because gin's pretty quick. So we make everything from scratch on site, including our vodka. So we have a really great new package on our vodka called Sacred Spring. We actually distill our vodka from our bourbon new make. So the only difference between our bourbon and our vodka is one of them, we don't age it all, and we redistill it to 191 proof, constituting it into a vodka purity. And I'm not the biggest vodka guy, but I love our vodka because it has a little bit of depth and character to it. So when we were designing that, we were told that vodka should taste like kerosene and finish like hairspray. It's like the actual technical definition of it. That didn't sound like a lot of fun to me from a drinking perspective. So when we're distilling from our bourbon new make, we're able to have a nice character with it. It's kind of the soft, light citrus or vanilla on the nose. The palate almost has a buttered toast quality to it. A little bit doughy, very soft, nice and sweet, good viscosity. I like our vodka just on the rocks with a lemon twist. Our flagship gin is now in the new package, Roots of Ruin. So all this new art was done by a company called Stranger & Stranger. They're the best in the world at what they do. They definitely charge for it, but they're exceptional. They worked with a lot of other Class A brands like Compass Box, if you're really into Scotch. But the bottles look gorgeous. They're going to look pretty in a home bar. They look great on the shelf. We're just always open about the name, because if you were looking for our old package that kind of had an experimental label, it was listed as a restoration gin. Now it's just Roots of Ruin. And then the other product that's available currently is our rye. So from the start of the project, we're a bourbon distillery. We always intended to be. The problem with bourbon is we're firm believers and it takes a lot of time to mature. So we didn't want to rush something out that we weren't happy with or excited about. So we waited. Oh yeah, that's a really pretty bottle of Restoration Rye. I should have one, but right now we're renovating like multiple rooms in our house. So I can't even get to my home bar. I'm like currently in the kitchen, like little area. But the Restoration Rye was a really fun first product for us from a matured whiskey standpoint. It's 63% rye, 17% malted barley, 17% yellow corn, 20% malted barley. The minimum age on that was actually about 3 years and 5 months, which I think is a huge credit to our team for being patient. There's lots of people who release some younger rye. That's not a criticism again. It's just we wanted to make sure the first time you tasted anything, especially a whiskey from us, that we were really proud of it.
Right.
Also, while you're waiting on bourbon, that's always the first question. Whenever we do anything, it will say, hey, we're going to start back our summer music series. First question, when's the bourbon coming out? Or, hey, we're releasing a new gin. We're excited about Rise. When's the bourbon coming out? Anything. I think my favorite one is we like congratulated somebody on an Instagram post, and the first response was, "When's the bourbon coming out?" And I was like, "Hey,
Oh, no.
this, that, and the other." Soon. I guess the answer is soon. You know, we were aiming at this fall, but at minimum it will be 4 years old. We're hoping to wait till spring, actually, just to make sure it's really enough volume to be able to make people happy so it doesn't sell out instantly, but also the standard that we're looking for. So I'm kind of expecting bourbon to be released probably next spring would be my best estimate. We're also doing a wheated bourbon that will probably be at minimum 5 to 7 years old. So I'd start looking out for wheated bourbon come this fall 2022. Sorry, I don't know what year it is. After last year, I'm just guessing at this point. Like, I think I still tell people it's 2020 half the time. But yeah, so keep an eye out for all of our matured spirits. But in the interim, you know, we have some great rye and some really nice vodka and gin for everyone to enjoy.
That's awesome. And I do want to talk about the Castle and Key grounds and how people can visit. But before, we had a lot of people that joined after we started making our cocktails. So I have to remind you why you're here. Welcome again to Glean Kentucky's virtual gala, a cocktail class with Castle and Key. We are with Brett Connors, who is the lead blender and brand ambassador for the distillery. We just got done making a gin and tonic, and we're gathered here not only to celebrate local distilleries and local craft cocktail makings of Jack Rudy Cocktail Company, but we are also here to support Glean Kentucky. We are a nonprofit that gathers and redistributes excess fresh fruits and vegetables to nourish Kentucky's hungry. We've been in the works since 2010 and have gleaned over 2 million pounds since our beginning. We work to reduce the food waste and food insecurity within Kentucky. Last year, we expanded for the first time into a new region into South Central Kentucky, which is Bowling Green area and the surrounding counties. And we are cooking with fire down there. It's picking up there. And if you are in the Bowling Green area or know of someone, we desperately need some volunteers because that is a very rural community. And I know that we're going to be crazy busy down there. Also, we're getting ready to start our peak season. Peak season is a buzzword within Glean Kentucky. It's from June to October is our growing season in Kentucky. And so we run multiple gleaning trips a day, most of them outside of Fayette County because we're going to farms where 33% of all produce that is grown is usually left in the field. It doesn't even get to production. It doesn't even get to the consumer's hands. And that's where we come in and we take that produce and we take it to feeding programs that you probably also support. But Brett, because of you, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about this amazing gin. And I want to hear more about Castle and Key. I grew up in Frankfort and I lived off of a street called Hanley Lane. And you're laughing because you know that was the teen place. If you did not trespass the Castle and Key grounds, were you even a teenager in Frankfort or Millville? So to see it become this beautiful distillery, as opposed to this hidden, haunted place of, mischievousness, it has been wonderful. I have not been able to go out just yet to the grounds, but I'd love to hear about that renovation and how everything's going out there.
Much better now. I think you put it really well. You know, we took the chance on a place that has always been really important to Kentucky history. You know, the original founder of it, E.H. Taylor Jr., was a visionary. You know, he built English-style pleasure gardens on the site in the 1890s. You know, he built the distillery around a massive peristyle-shaped spring house or keyhole. They called it the key to his bourbon. You know, just he really knew that Kentucky could be more, and a lot of it in our industry, there's a lot of misperceptions nationally about what Kentucky was and what we were about. You know, a lot of people from the East Coast, the elites, you know, who drank brandy, cognac, scotches, thought bourbon wasn't much of anything. They also thought Kentucky was kind of antiquated, if not far behind. You know, Mark Twain even had that same perspective. But the reality is E.H. Taylor was more than that. You know, he built a showplace that rivaled anything in the world in the middle of Millville, Kentucky, right on the outskirts of Frankfort on Glens Creek. Then over time, you know, a larger corporation took over between the 30s and 70s, National Distillers. You know, they were very successful there. We're making a lot of whiskey, but over time, preferences changed. You know, bourbon became kind of antiquated. I blame James Bond for this. Not, you know, Sean Connery, particularly Ian Fleming. It was the rise of clear goods, Bacardi, just different gins. The reality was bourbon became what your granddad drank and not what somebody young drank. So they were losing a lot of money, so they shuttered the site. Over the decades, it really deteriorated. It was more or less pretty abandoned from the mid 90s on. And then an architectural salvage company did what they did. They removed all the copper, brass, anything of value from site. And when we got there, we didn't necessarily know any better. Our founding partner, Will Arbin, was an attorney by trade. He jokes it was a really creative midlife crisis, but he knew he wanted to be part of the bourbon industry. He was always enamored with it. He Googled distilleries for sale and found our site. Well, there's a reason every other bourbon company in the United States was not interested in it. They had no idea what the renovation would cost. It looked very much like Chernobyl, or if you like, the show The Walking Dead. It was about like that. No roofs. 80% of the buildings were damaged, if not missing. All the internal equipment was deemed to be a totality of loss. There was a four-wheeler path down the center of the property. The site was more or less ran by a gang of rabid raccoons and a couple deer. They were rough customers. You didn't want to be there late at night. They would definitely pick you up. But it just was ugly. Water, no sewage, no electrical, nothing. And we're very fortunate that our founding partners saw this site in Oregon. So the first project we embarked on was just cleaning the site and figuring out what we even had, just removing overgrowth, debris. And that we found that a lot of the buildings were in better conditions than we initially thought. And then we did something even crazier. Through Will's actually mother, we met John Karloftis, who's world-renowned as a fine gardener and just an amazing human being. And we started on the gardens, which for everyone here, that sounds completely logical. For the distillery world, we didn't have a roof on the distillery, we didn't have a still, and we didn't have any equipment to be able to produce liquor. So instead, we were working on the gardens. So I think people in the industry thought we were a little insane, but it was about vision. We wanted a place completed to be able to point to and say, hey, everything we do is going to be this refined, this approachable, this welcoming, this beautiful. When we knew that it was going to take a long time to bring distillation back to life, to the point where we opened in September of 2018 to the public. My favorite Castle and Key joke is we had a big sign up front, and hopefully some of you all saw it, that said Castle and Key coming in fall of 2016. And then it just said 2016. And then it said spring of 2017. And then it just said 2017. And then it just said coming. It said Castle and Key Distillery coming. So we were within 2 years of the initial opening timeline, so we count that as close. It's sort of like the game of horseshoes. As long as you're close, you're fine. But the reality was, it was because we wanted to open up the site correctly and do it well. Coming out of that, when we opened to the public, the first 2 years were amazing, great support. Obviously COVID, we made some decisions just to be very protective of our staff and our community around us. But then recently, we've actually reopened the physical side of the grounds to the public. So we're going to be doing tours here sooner than later. But my favorite thing is we're now open Thursday through Sunday. You can come to the site, bring a picnic. We have a little cocktail window. You can grab a beer, a cocktail on tap, a glass of wine, and just sit and enjoy the weather. And that's totally free. You have to pay for your cocktails. That's the only rule. And you can't bring off outside alcohol, but that's because the government cares. I don't care if you bring outside alcohol. It's like the ABC is actually like legitimately concerned about it. But I always say, come out to the site and just enjoy the weather. We're hopefully bringing back our summer music series shortly, once there's better vaccination rates throughout Kentucky. And then tours should be starting up here in the next couple weeks, if not a few months, if we do everything well. This is Club Soda and the founder of Glean Kentucky. Okay, I like that trivia question. We're gonna have to circle back to it. I'm really ADHD, so I read everybody's questions like at the same time. But one of the things I love about the site, though, for everyone in Glean, is that even if you aren't a big fan of like spirits, if you don't love gin, if you don't love whiskey, that's totally okay. My mother-in-law is from Pikeville. She now says the word distillery. It's been a big step. We're very, very excited about that. Previously, she would just say, well, Brett works at, the place in Millville, the, Castle and Key. But even she loves coming to site to see the grounds and the flowers, especially when we're in full bloom. And we always say we want to be very inclusive, so even if you just want to drink a soda water or have a nice cup of coffee on the grounds, we absolutely could welcome you out just to enjoy the day. So I guess this is more of a call to action, is come visit us, especially when everything hits full bloom. I think we're about a month away from my hydrangeas. All that frost just froze all our hydrangeas, so we're waiting a little bit for it. He did say the Brits are smart. The Brits are smart. They're very creative on the distillation side, and they make some pretty darn good cocktails too. But great. Any questions there before we move on to another drink?
So fun fact, Roberta Burns and John Walker, they said, what is the connection between club soda and a founder of Glean Kentucky? I feel like it's really loaded. I see John Walker. John Walker is one of our founders. Glean Kentucky was founded by 3 people, and he is one of the treasured trio. I'm curious, Roberta, what is the connection between club soda and a founder? She's asking him.
I love the teamwork here. That
I'm wondering if it's inappropriate or if she's just filtering it. Unmute. I think I can unmute.
Okay, so
Quickly.
club soda was invented by Joseph Priestley, who also discovered oxygen. Joseph Priestley was married in Wrexham to Mary Wilkinson, who was the sister of John Ironmad Wilkinson, who started Brumbo Steelworks.
Wrexham is in Wales.
I grew up in just
Wrexham.
in Wrexham, and I worked at Brumbo Steelworks. So there's a connection between club soda and the founder of Glean Kentucky.
This is like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
And that's 3 degrees. I mean,
That's 3 degrees to club soda.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I like that. I like that.
I love it. Thank you, John.
Indulging.
Yes.
we love the indulgence. We always play the game on site. You know, our facility is so historic to the area that we're connected to darn near about everything that's ever occurred in Frankfurt and the surrounding area, even to the point where we have a great relationship with Coolmore Ashford Stud, which was historically owned by E.H. Taylor as a Hereford cattle farm. So E.H. Taylor's passions were not only the production of the finest whiskeys, it was also the siring of the finest bulls, to the point where at one point E.H. Taylor's bull Beau was the all-time sales record for a single stud in the United States for like a really long amount of time. I thought this was a joke until the Hay family and the Taylor family have a massive portrait of this bull that is the size of it is like almost double the size of the man standing beside it. It looks like a caricature of a real animal. But I guess that bull lived a very successful life, and now Ashford has a very successful stud farm in their own way. I think they stand for a little bit more money than that bull did, though, retrospectively. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
So it's 1:30, so I think it's a great time to start making our second cocktail that you had planned.
Perfect. So the second cocktail is a simple cocktail. It's a gimlet. So gimlets are fun. They're often either historically just gin and Rose's lime juice. So I like the Rose's lime juice recipe. That's my preference on it. It already has the sweetener built in. It's funny, bartending every drink in the world is better with fresh citrus, except gimlets. Gimlets are the one exception to the rule, and that's because no matter what you do, Rose's has been perfect for decades. If you are making it with fresh lime juice, I'll give you that recipe as well.
Hey,
So-
Brett, can you hold the label up closer to your camera so we can see what it looks like?
They sell it at Kroger. It's one of the most
Awesome.
common cocktail ingredients. Rose's is dirt cheap. I think this is like $1 and some change.
Oh, good.
Normally, I'd recommend like whiskey sours. Never use like pre-pressed like lemon juice. Always use fresh lime juice. Now you can use simple syrup and lime juice. It's just a little bit different in the recipe. So I'll go through the gimlet with Rose's, and I'll go through a gimlet with fresh lime juice as well. And I'll tell you the differences between the two. So this is a drink that includes citrus. So the simple bar fact is if you don't have any citrus in your cocktail, you know, things like old fashions, Bucharest, Manhattans should always be stirred. It has to do with dilution rates, where if you want to put citrus in a cocktail, things like Ramos Gin Fizzes, sours, brambles, anything like that, it's always going to be shaken. So James Bond was wrong. You should never shake your martinis. It's bad for them. They don't like it. They'd much rather prefer to be stirred. Now, when I'm making this cocktail, it's 2 ingredients, which is the easiest thing in the world. When you're using Rose's, I use 2 ounces of gin, And then, I'm doing math in my head, 3/4 of an ounce of Rose's lime juice. It's one of those cocktails as well where you'll see the recipe a little bit different everywhere because people prefer it a little bit sweeter, or a little bit lighter. So give that a little bit of a shake. And all you're gonna do there is add ice and shake, which I'll show you in a moment. If you're using fresh lime juice and simple syrup, what essentially you're doing is making your own roses anyway. So I recommend a 1/2 ounce of fresh squeezed lime juice. I do recommend straining it. That way you don't have too much pill if they're kind of like flesh in it as well. And then 1/2 ounce of a simple syrup, which would be a 1-to-1 most likely. There's also 2-to-1 simple syrups that are a little bit more concentrated. At home, I like a 1-to-1 because it's more versatile and you can use it in your coffee in the morning. It's going to be shelf stable for a couple weeks in the fridge. Just a nice product to have around. You can also use honey in this. My favorite with our gin too, I don't mind a little bit of a honey simple syrup with it instead of a traditional, like, just Demerara or Turbinado simple syrup. If you want to go a little bit more summery, bright, refreshing, it's just a little bit lighter.
Yeah. John and Roberta, do you have the lime stuff? Do you have the Rose's lime? Yes.
Rose's lime, like in any house, if you're going to have a little home bar, I always recommend Rose's lime, a good homemade grenadine, which is just pomegranate seeds for the most part, and a little bit of sugar structure that's fortified with a little bit of vodka, a good simple syrup, and then a nice bottle of sweet vermouth. Once you open your vermouth, this is going to change your life. Put it in your fridge and write the date on it. You have about 30 days before it's not great anymore. I love going over to even our founder, Will. I went over to his house and he was making Manhattans with Blanc vermouth, which is like not the way you make those. And then he was like, yeah, vermouth's good for like ever, right? I'm like, no. That's why when you go to a bar and you have a Manhattan with fresh vermouth, it's like life changing. You're like, but when I go home, my Manhattans aren't nearly this good. Well, it's because your vermouth's oxidized. It's not good anymore. So when you shake this, I recommend about 25 to 30 seconds on shake. It's a pretty quick one. With these shakers, you're trying to find the sweet spot to break the seal because they kind of naturally vacuum together. And then I always like to strain. This is my favorite strainer. It's a Hawthorne. So the nice part about this, if you really get into cocktails and you want to make yourself a Ramos Gin Fizz, you can take off this metal piece here and almost use it as a whisk while you're shaking it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that little Hawthorne structure will basically whisk your egg white naturally. So super pro tip. Again, when you're on Jeopardy, let me know. I don't know who the host is going to be currently, so you'll have to figure that out. And then I strain. Gimlets are generally enjoyed neat. If you're going to go outside, I don't mind them on like a big cube or something if you want to keep them a little bit extra chilled. Historically, the garnish is just going to be a really thin lime wheel. With this one, we don't have any limes today, so I'm just going to drink it neat. Cheers.
That's awesome. Let's see.
Someone said that is strong. Yeah. I like a pretty strong gimlet.
We have some friends here, Chris and Perry Bentley. I think I saw them making. Did you guys just make this cocktail too? Yes. Awesome. Oh, I saw another lime bottle go. Yep, there we go. I saw another one. Yay! You got lots of people making this. That's fantastic. Both drinks are, I've had that gimlet before, and both of them are so good for summer and just sitting on the porch on your rocking chair or a hammock and just enjoying it and enjoying the breeze. Now I need it to not be 60 degrees outside or 50 degrees. It needs to actually be May weather.
Yeah, the only trick with gimlets are they're pretty strong though, so I recommend doing so responsibly. My grandmother liked gimlets and then would switch herself over to non-alcoholic beer, which was probably better for everyone. after one or two gimlets, they sneak up on you a lot more than any other cocktail because they're just so bright and refreshing. It almost reminds me of like the classic, we mentioned James Bond earlier, the Vesper. Vespers are 4 to 1 to a half, so there's a lot of alcohol in them. And they don't drink like that. They drink like sunshine. They're really bright, delicate light. But there's a lot of booze in a Vesper. So if you're drinking them, I always give you the warning beforehand. This would be awesome with mint, absolutely. So that's kind of like a lot of people will convert gimlets now. My favorite summer drink is I'll just pour this over like pellet ice, almost like that ice from Sonic, you know, or I guess in certain areas of Kentucky or the South, they call it chewing ice, you know, that really nice soft pellet ice. I pack a glass like a snow cone, add a little bit of mint to it, and then strain a gimlet into it. It just tastes like a lime slush, a little bit of mint to it. It's just a fancier kind of easy take on the same drink. So you get to just go a different direction with it. And those are super, if you like refreshing, fresh mint on pellet ice, gimlet is going to be the brightest, lightest drink. And if you want to dilute it, if it's a little strong for you too, you can always add a splash of soda water just to cut some of that volume down on the ABV. And again, that's almost like kind of a fizz or like a highball again, where you can drink them, they're refreshing, they're light, you know, and they're not going to be as potent as a traditional gimlet. But yeah.
Awesome. So Brett, what is your favorite cocktail?
Oh man, this is like asking people what their favorite pet is. Ours is Marceline when our cat Raymond's being bad. When he's being good, it's Raymond, but most of the time it's not Raymond. He's on the outs currently, but not in a good. We would never get rid of Raymond. He's like 14. He's been this bad the whole time we've had him. But my favorite cocktail, I'd say, it depends on mood for me. In the wintertime, I'm a big fan of like a Vucare or, you know, just a really classic, like strong old fashioned. You know, I like Vucares because they're a great balance of like cognac, rye, sweet vermouth, a little bit of Benedictine. They're just probably my favorite all-time cocktail from a balance perspective. You know, I make some pretty mean old fashioned, so I like those too. In the summertime, if I really like the bartender and he knows I tip well, I'll order Ramos Gin Fizzes. If you don't do either of those things, don't order them. They'll give the bartender tennis elbow because it's a reverse double shake. So they take like 4 to 5 minutes to make. In the bar world, they're a miserable drink to produce, but they're delicious. It's kind of the earliest inception of a milkshake. So you think back, my grandfather owned a pharmacy, and a lot of those like old egg flips and stuff are the ways that they'd be able to chill a drink down to build that kind of like a froth or a volume to it. So Ramos Gin Fizzes are just, when you get a good one, it's a really special thing because it's a true artist that it requires to execute them well. I like a good gin and tonic. You know, I love Jack Rudy. They're probably my favorite gin and tonic concentrate. If I'm running late and I'm just running by like, you know, the store, I'll often use Fever Tree if they have it. I think Fever Tree makes some pretty good pre-carbonated, pre-bottled tonics. I used to drink Schweppes until I found out that Schweppes it's fine, but it's not nearly as good as like a Q or a Fever Tree or a Jack Rudy. And the nice part about Jack Rudy is you get to support some local guys. Well, Brooks lives in Charleston, but you know, Taylor Huber, his brother or cousin, lives in Lexington. So we try to support local as much as we can. I love that you had the Fever Tree already, but I like those little small bottles too. You know, we try to not waste a lot in our house if we can, which is, I guess, the whole point we're on this call with Glean, right? You know, and using like a big bottle of tonic and stuff, like especially the large 2 liters, like I'll never drink that much tonic before it goes flat. So I really do like the glass bottles that you can recycle. They're really nice size. They'll make about 2 cocktails. So I think it's really easy to use that kind of a size on the bottle too.
I've always been a huge fan of Jack Rudy's packaging. It's very, I don't know, it reminds me of apothecaries.
Yeah.
And like the way that the labels look. I don't know. I've always really liked them, and they have really great quality stuff. So if you like this Jack Rudy's tonic syrup, you can visit Jack Rudy online and actually see more of their product line, or go to Liquor Barn and see more of their stuff, or come to our Garden Gala next year in person. I think that is a really important thing to say, is that next year we will be returning in person, where we can all enjoy these cocktails in person. In 2019, they used a sweet tea syrup and lavender bitters to make, I think it was one of the best cocktails I've ever had. And it was with Castle and Key Gin. Brett, thank you so much for helping us make these cocktails. I'm going to talk a little bit about upcoming things with Glean Kentucky too. September 26th, mark your calendars. We have Burgers and Beats going on. We have our opening, we have a band, the Penny Band, that is going to be performing for us. It's going to be at the West 6 Farm in Frankfurt. We're super excited about that. We're going to have a Burgers ticket and a Beats ticket. So if you want to come and just listen to music, you don't have to pay for the food. And in addition to that, next Tuesday is our Kentucky Gives Day. So follow along to hear updates from us and be able to support us throughout the day. But if you would like to support us tonight, you can just text Gin and Tonic, all one word, to 44321. And you will be able to make a donation that is meaningful to you to our organization. It will go immediately back to our programming. We're using the funding now to be able to strengthen our programming into Bowling Green, as well as get ready for that peak season that we spoke about. Beyond that, oh, there's a kitty. We got a kitty sighting. I had a cat try to come over here and I had to push her away. Oh. Beyond that, I just thank you all for coming to visit and making a cocktail with us and enjoying the evening. And we'll leave it open for a couple of minutes in case you have any more questions about Glean Kentucky or about Jack Rudy Company or Castle and Key. I also want to say a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Republic Bank. They are not only just the bank of the community, but they are also the Bank of Glean Kentucky. We have been so happy with them and we're so happy they're a partner of ours. So thank you so much, Republic Bank. And thank you to our other partners. Did everybody else get the free Castle, not the Castle and Key, but the Crank and Boom scoops? Everybody got, I saw a really excited crowd. Everybody, yes, Crank and Boom scoops. Okay, so yeah, you definitely go and thank our partner with Crank and Boom. They are also one of our chefs that come to the Garden Gala. So another little shout out to our in-person event. Thank you to Liquor Barn for helping us coordinate the cocktail kits, Jack Rudy Cocktail Company, and Castle and Key and Brett Connors. Thank you guys so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you all for having us again. The only last question we had was, what's the key to a good old fashioned? Keep it simple. No soda water. Don't muddle anything in it. Just good Demerara 2-to-1 simple syrup, 2 ounces of a whiskey that you actually like. You know, don't feel bad about using expensive whiskey in old fashions. You're still enjoying it. Couple dashes of Angostura, a couple dashes of good orange bitters. Keep it easy to start. If you want to get sassier with it, you can explore bitters and play with different recipes and stuff. But a good sugar, a good whiskey, that's all you need. You can even do maple syrup or honey simple, whatever you want to do in it. Just feel creative. And yeah, don't put soda water in your old fashions unless you're from Wisconsin. That's a different cocktail. It's a whole different beast. But yeah, no, thank you all again and have a great night. And please let us know if you have.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. You all have a wonderful evening.